wrestling fans. Welcome to the Extreme Horsemen podcast, number 3, ECW original, Rottweiler, C.W. Anderson, the Pain Train Preston Quinn, here to hopefully give you a little insight on what it's like to be one of the best tag teams in the world and to answer some of your resounding questions about the world of professional wrestling. And sometimes CW, I even have people ask me stuff. They want us to talk about stuff that has nothing to do with professional wrestling just because they want to know what our opinions are on things that are happening around the world.
Yeah, they want to kind of hear our personal side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the introduction voice. Your professional introduction voice is fantastic.
If I ever have to resort to commentary, I'm telling you right now, ooh.
Yeah, you're Lance Russell.
C.W. Anderson really hammered him with that spine buster. But anyways, so CW, what's been happening with you the last couple of, or even for the last week since we were here with the peoples?
Yesterday was a really rough day for my family. My mom and dad had a little dog named Biscuit. It was a cockapoo. She's been in the family for 14 years, and come to find out, we had one vet misdiagnose her, and she suffered for about a week until another vet called it. She had a mass on her liver, and she'd been bleeding internally. She was 15, I think, and they had to put her down yesterday. That's been my mom and dad's child, and me losing Castor a couple months ago, and then with my deal with Roxanne getting ready with her cancer. And then when I got home yesterday, come to find out, Saber's my new rescue Rottweiler. You heard me talk about him. I thought a cat attacked him or something because he's got a really bad scratches here. Here's really scratched up really bad, and it might just be a real bad allergy because he's been pawing at it.
Mm-hmm.
Got him to the vet, got him treated. I mean, it literally like he's been in a fight. So yesterday was a really rough day with that. And then I think Friday, Brittany and I were going to go to a haunted house.
Yeah.
And we get ready to pay for it. We're sitting at our little restaurant, and Brittany pulls it up, and she's getting ready to hit scene. She says, "Must have proper attire. You will be running, crawling on dirt, crawling under things." I'm like, what?
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like I don't want to be a part of it because I'm in shorts and just a nice dress shirt. I'm not going to be crawling and getting chased. I'm too damn old to be chased by something.
Did you put on your Depends?
Yeah, that's literally scared the shit out of me. So we ended up not going. We ended up doing something else.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not paying $50-some for somebody to chase me. I got to wrestle. So that's about as much chasing as I want to do.
Yeah, and you want to get chased, we can go up and wrestle in Chicago.
Yes. I normally on Sundays don't watch. I just have like football on. I don't watch it like you do.
Yeah.
But I was at my buddy Mo's house, who and you hear me talk about it all the time, and we were watching the Jaguars and Dolphins, and seeing that guy kick those 2 field goals, the one that started out 10 yards too far to the right and at the last second curved in and made it at 50-some yards, and then he kicked the game winner. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Even for somebody like me that doesn't watch football or doesn't even watch sports anymore.
There you go. Speaking of, hey, that's a great segue. Speaking of watching sports, we were asked what do we think of today's wrestling, and who do we like to watch in today's wrestling, to add to that question. So I'm going to start with you on that one.
Not too much of today's wrestling. Wrestling has definitely changed. I'm not too much of a fan of today's wrestling. I am a fan of how athletic the guys are nowadays and the things they can do.
Yep.
I think the art of storytelling and the art of psychology to some extent, especially in tag team wrestling, is lost. The closest thing that there is to it is FTR. And we both know them because they were raised here in the Carolinas, and that's where they got their start. Super proud of them for the success they have, but they're the closest thing. I like watching them, not only because I know them, because they're great tag team psychology experts, and they study. Those guys study their craft as far as tag
Yeah,
team
they study the
wrestling.
same ones we do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You can tell because they study Midnight's Rock and Roll.
Yep.
A lot of the same guys we study. Um, I'm not too much of a fan, and it could be my age, it could be the style, the way I was brought up, the wrestling, my genre, what I was. I'm not a fan of the flipping, no selling, things to that extent. And I know I get a lot of slack from some people because I came from ECW and the things we did. But if you go back and watch a lot of my stuff, especially when I wrestled Super Crazy and Kid Cash, the high flyers like that, I didn't fly with them. I didn't go out. We made the stuff make sense and had psychology to it. And yes, we had a lot of tables and chairs and things like that. Um, and I guess to some extent, ECW is a big reason of the style of wrestling for the day.
Yeah.
But I really like the old school wrestling. I'm always going to like old school wrestling because I've proven time and time again, we've proven time and time again that old school wrestling can still make money and still draw. We're doing it right now with the Dawsons. As bad as we dislike them on a wrestling level and a personal level, people think, just because we wrestle them that we actually like Dave and Zane outside of wrestling, and we don't at all. So
that in wrestling, and
uh,
for the most part, we're asked to, just like anybody else in their jobs, you don't have to like everybody at your job. If you got to work with people at your job that you don't like, that's what you have to do if you want your paycheck. You want to stay gainfully employed and not let Joey B pay all your bills for you, then you have to work with people that you probably just don't like. And sometimes it happens in wrestling. And yes, we do have the opportunities to go out there and take liberties with people that we don't like, but that doesn't give you the best reputation in the world either. But with the Dawson, it's one of them situations where you have personal and professional differences with somebody, and we've basically been given the green light from a business standpoint. You guys go do what you need to do. And that's one thing I like about AML is Tracy and Brian know what the fans want to see. And when they look at you and say, hey, if you see them, you want it, y'all go do it. Which is why you've seen us fight with them before shows, intermissions, after shows, during segments that we're not even supposed to be a part of, whatever. And the fans have responded in kind by wanting to see this match as much as anything else that's going on,
if not more.
Yeah. And when was the last time that tag team championship was as revered as the heavyweight title? And I'll tell you, it was back when the Midnight Express was fighting with the Rock and Roll Express on the mains of the B shows for Crockett, while Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes were fighting on the A shows. So they were holding a main events for the tag team championship on shows that were selling out. So Crockett was running 3 shows a night, and the Midnights and the Rock were main in one, and Flair and Magnum or Flair, Dusty or whoever would be main in the other. And then the C shows that were out in like the high school gyms and stuff like that, their C team, that was Paul Jones's Army versus Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant. But anyway, we got completely off on something there. But regardless, not having to like the people, correct. Not having to like the style of wrestling, correct. I do not watch wrestling anymore, and I've tried, and I catch things online, and I catch things through different podcasts, and if they tell, if I hear something interesting enough, I'll go back and watch it. I watched Daniel Bryan, or Brian Danielson, or whatever he's called now. I watched him and Kenny Omega, and that was clearly a case of a veteran that took the youngster and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to use your athleticism when I say so. You're going to follow me, and we're going to make this make sense. And it ended up becoming probably what's going to be, people are probably going to give it match of the year, because it actually had some emotion behind it. It actually had some reasoning. I mean, Kenny Omega is always going to be Kenny Omega. He's always going to have stupid looks on his face. He's always going to exaggerate everything. He's going to jitter and shake and do that kind of stuff he does. But Brian is such a good wrestler, worker, and veteran that he really took that and even made that entertaining for somebody as jaded as I am towards the modern wrestling style.
It was the same way when Kenny worked wrestled Christian.
Christian,
You can tell Christian called that match. It was actually a good match because Christian took Kenny's athletic ability and what he can do and molded it to that match.
Yep.
And Christian 100% called it. And that's what you have to do. Because look, when I got to ECW and I was wrestling Jerry Lynn and Tommy Dreamer and RVD, Jerry and those guys, because Jerry's a freaking technician and a master at this stuff. He would take my stuff and my ability, and the same with RVD, and put it into their style to make the match make sense. Because they were the veterans, they were the ones who knew how to call the match and to get the match over. So that's what you have to do.
Yep.
Because it makes you a better wrestler.
And to your point, FTR is the only ones that interest me in modern wrestling, and Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Those are probably the only ones that really. MJF, because at least he stays in character. I haven't seen enough of his body of work in the ring to really give any kind of a real synopsis on whether or not I think he's as good as he's billed. But I know that he stays in character. I see a lot of his tweets, a lot of stuff he does on social media, and I really applaud that. I do like Adam Page. They've used him completely incorrectly. I know that's shock, and I clutch my chest as I almost had a heart attack that AEW would book somebody incorrectly. But regardless,
I do have to say they've gotten a lot better over the past months with their booking and how once Punk and Bryan Danielson and they got Adam Cole and Christian, those guys came through. The shows have gotten a lot.
Bobby Fish, I think, has showed
Bobby Fish has just showed up as well.
Yeah, Bobby Fish is a working machine. I'm gonna tell you right now, when I was at ROH, just seeing him warm up before a show wore me out. But that kind of brings us into a little bit of opposite. We kind of hit on last week on some people that or the notion that if you've been on television, it automatically means that you're a good wrestler. And we were asked if we had any more specific examples of who is, with a Z on the end, the shits that has made their career on television. Who have you been in the ring with that you say, man, that guy was the shits?
I'm having a hard time recalling because most of the time I'm usually the one calling the match and taking care of it. So most of the time I can pull a good match out of most people. I'm trying to think who I've been in the ring with.
I had trouble with Eric Watts.
I actually teamed with Eric with the Dangerous Alliance. I never got to work with him to that extent.
Yeah, I had trouble with him. He couldn't remember shit. I had to call everything on the fly.
Well, here's the one thing, and I can say this, and I wouldn't care if he was still alive, but the worst one I've been with is Mike Awesome. He couldn't remember shit.
I've heard your stories on that.
Yeah, Mike Awesome was dangerous. We had a lot of heat because he was a freaking goof. But he couldn't remember shit. He was, again, stiff. He would hurt you. I remember Masato Tanaka hated wrestling him. Hated him because he would say the same thing. He'd hurt me.
Yeah.
But that was somebody that hurt. He didn't like taking that shit. And
oh, really?
Mike. Yeah, no. Yeah, you think it was somebody that with Tanaka's background who liked doing it? No, because he knew Mike Awesome was dangerous, and Mike didn't give a shit. Mike would hurt you. The first time I wrestled Mike, we would go over the match. He's our ECW heavyweight champion, and we lock up, and he forgets the whole damn match. The next time I wrestled him was the same way. I'm the new guy at ECW. You are a world champ. You should be calling the match. And he couldn't remember shit. Nothing.
You're saying that, and that actually flows right into one of the questions we were asked about psychology. It was a multi-part question. I'm going to make sure I cover it all here. But one of the things that they asked was calling it in the ring. Okay. CW, I'm gonna give you a scenario. I told you I was gonna start doing this stuff to you. CW, you done talked to You didn't talk to Big Mike Awesome, baby. Y'all been in the locker room stinking. And y'all get ready to go out there. Everybody, ECW crazy. Mike champ, and you've gotten this match put together that you know not even Mike Awesome can screw this match up. You've gone over in your head what spots can he mess up and how can I cover it if it happens. You got the whole thing laid out. You're thinking about it, and you get in the ring and y'all lock up, and Mike goes, "Hey, brother, what are we doing, man? What are we doing?" How you, C.W. Anderson, you've locked up with Big Mike Awesome. How do you handle a man that has just forgotten everything you spoke
Um, Call basically. You sit there and we're usually in the lockup, so we're struggling in the lockup because I love locking up and love making it like a struggle. Run through the first spot with him. Run through the very first part. They just listen to me, push me off, show your size. We're going to get to that first spot. We're going to wrestle around, and I'm calling that first spot while we're doing the whole thing, whether it's a, tackle, drop down, whatever the spot we've come up with. I am calling that in the lockup. I am calling that as I'm getting ready to lock up with them again. As we're doing our reversals, I'm slowly calling that with him and make sure
about. Okay.
he's got it.
But for the young guys, do that because we've had to do that so many times. Have kind of our brain has defaults that it can go to make time for us to think of other stuff. Explain, like you said, you had him throw you off. Now, for me, if I had him throw me off, that the reasoning for that would be because I need my brain to come up with what I need, that extra 5 to 10 seconds. So he throws me off, I'm going to hit the mat, roll up on my knees, and look at him and look at the crowd. But my brain right now is flipping through pages of a book. What spot do I want to go ahead and do? So you also use that time that he threw you off to come up with the next spot.
Yes. See where the crowd's at. To see how they're popping off that. If they're popping off of his strength, I'm going to come up with something else to make him, whether it's just a big power, big slam, scoop slam, another throw off, something. I'm coming up with those things, but I am listening to the crowd. Correct. That's the one thing the young guys don't do because they're so enthralled in spots A through Z. Yes. That when spot B doesn't work, they're a deer in headlights.
Yep. It's a train.
Diamond Dallas Page told me the first time I met him when I was hanging out with Raven when I was at the power plant. Diamond Dallas Page told me, I said, look, my name's Chris Wright. I wrestle C.W. Anderson, blah, blah, blah. I'm new. I said, if you could tell me one bit of advice that would help me through my career and help me when I'm in the ring, what would it be? He says, if you think you're going slow, slow down more.
Yep.
Because you're going way too fast already in the ring. Everything's going 100 miles an hour. And when you want to go do something, my favorite saying, let it marinate. Just sit there, relax, let the crowd become vested in you.
Yep.
Because you have to bring the crowd into this. Because if you're just going through your spots, you're not getting over with them. Because you're just going through spots and you forgot about them. I critiqued the guys' match a few months ago. Fantastic spots, but they never reacted to the crowd once. Not once. In the crowd, you could see people sitting there on their phone. You could people turn around talking to people, to other people in the crowd, because they weren't vested in the people, because you got to make them a part of your match.
And what was it that Lance Storm said about wrestling for the crowd or yourself?
Yeah, when I was listening to Jim Cornette's podcast, like we always do, and he was talking about the match between Bryan Danielson and Minoru Suzuki, about how bad it was, just for the simple fact Cornette doesn't like those style of matches, and you can make those matches better, and you can drag them out and make them worse because it's a Japanese style. There's a fine line with it. Anyway, he said back when he had Lance Storm and Chris Jericho, that's about the time they were starting to watch more of the Japanese stuff, and they said he couldn't get away from watching Japanese tapes, and it hit Lance Storm one day that he goes, we have to start giving the match that the fans want to see, not what we want to see. Which means you can plan it out in the back and you think it's all great, but if the fans don't give a damn about it, they're not going to care. So how many times have you heard veterans tell you, just go out there and feel it. Listen to the crowd. George South will tell that 100,000 times. We're just going to listen to the crowd. That's why when you're listening to the crowd, you can hear them begging for a comeback, begging for a hope spot, begging for that heel to get his ass planted, something along those lines. Listen to the fans.
And part of what they asked, they said, what it means, what psychology means, how do we study it, and how we apply it in matches. For me, if I'm answering that, psychology to me is what makes sense. If this is a real contest, if we're trying to win this match, we're trying to pin a guy, it doesn't take us having to hit a finisher to try to pin a guy. That's one of my biggest peeves. Some matches you won't see a man go for a pinfall one time until they get in their finishing sequence to take it home. And this is a contest. Everything needs to mean something. We always say no wasted motion. Psychology is that. Would always give this example. He says, he's been working the guy, doing his arm drags, doing that whole thing, and then when he'd do a spot where the guy would try to cut him off and shoot him into the corner, and he'd move out, and the guy would hit his knee in the corner, and Ricky Steamboat would ask people in the seminar, and now that guy's run his knee into the corner, what am I gonna do next? And they're like, oh, you're gonna go after his leg. He was like, now why the hell would I do that if I've just been arm dragging him and working his arm for the last 5 minutes? So all that meant nothing just because he run his knee into the turnbuckle. And he's right. The guy would hit, turn around, and he would give him another arm drag. He's going back to his arm. Just because the guy's knee hit the turnbuckle once doesn't equate to 5 minutes of Ricky Steamboat arm dragging this dude before that.
That's the one thing I was told a long time ago, being an Anderson, was when you're working an arm, no matter what the guy does, if you're constantly working that arm, and you can watch stuff from ECW on with me. If I'm working an arm and he's firing back, you won't see me poke the eye. You'll see me blast his arm.
Yep, punch him in the arm.
That's the weak spot that I've been working.
Yep.
And why would I do anything else but go back to what I've been working? Because again, all these things were told to me a long time ago. It seems like you try to win. That's all. It's a contest. When he gets hurt, when he does something, go for a cover, hook the legs, hook it deep. Yep. Make it look like you're trying to win.
And make him kick out. We make guys kick out.
Yeah.
I lay on them, kick out. Like if you don't kick out, that's your fault.
Yep.
So and to that point, referees never stop your count unless that man kicks out. There's nothing worse than seeing a referee 1, 2, and you see that hesitation before he's going to count the 3. Don't worry about that. He's either going to kick out or he's not, and it's not going to be on the referee his shoulder.
That was a huge. The very first time I worked Too Cold Scorpio at the ECW Arena for Francine's show, for I think it was for his sister or something. It was the first time Scorpio and I worked. We were tearing the house down, and he got ahead in his spots and hit me with his finisher. And even though he didn't want that to be the finisher, our communication was screwed up. And I was saying, do you want me to kick out? And I think he was telling me yes or no. I could not remember, but I just knew that was the finisher, and I didn't kick out. And Pee Wee counted me out, even though Scorp wanted me to kick out. I didn't kick out. I was supposed to kick out. And Pee Wee counted me. He did 100% did his job. It was all on me that I didn't kick out.
Yep. So,
which goes to 5 counts with tag team wrestling, or when they're coming in and out.
Yep.
How many times, especially nowadays, I've seen
they don't even hardly tag anymore.
Doesn't. Oh God, the tag team
AEW don't even tag hard.
There's no 5 count, 10 count, whatever. It's supposed to be a 5 count, and they don't give them a 5 count. You're supposed to give these guys a 5 count.
So, on the psychology thing, because we will get to the tag team portion of that.
Right.
On the psychology thing, another thing is always facials. Sell what hurts. Sell what got hit. But God, please sell. That's part of the psychology, right? That's part of what gets the crowd emotionally invested into the match. Is the heel, is the heel selling the babyface shine? Does he look like a coward? Does he look like he's on the ropes? Does the heel needs to be doing his job? Is the babyface his facials convincing the crowd that he needs their help? He needs them to dig him out of this And the way that this heel is pounded on him, he's in trouble, and he's showing him his face, and it almost looks like he's ready to cry. And the crowd's just getting on him. So, but really, just it comes down to make sense. Just do stuff that makes. It aggravates the hell out of me to see guys do pass bys, the lucha. You know, does that you understand what I'm saying? Hold on one second.
While we have this pause in our communication, I'm going to go back to playing my Rubik's Cube.
You're good. You're good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, I'm just going to use the default camera here.
Yeah, sounding good now.
What I'm saying is, facials sell what's being attacked. When somebody has you in the corner, and you know the whole clean break thing, what do a lot of guys do? They put their hands up like this. If you're in a contest, are you going to put your arms up so that you can open your face up to a guy to potentially punch you in the face? Like that never happens in wrestling. You know, it's small things. Change the narrative. Change that. Like this is what fans always see. They always see the guys fall for the same crap over and over and over. And that's something CW and I always focus on. How do we change the traditional spots so that fans think this is coming, and then when it doesn't, they're like, oh, and you get like a rise out of them. They're like, oh, I did not see that coming. That's the type of stuff you have to do. That's all part of the psychology, because eventually we have to learn from the mistakes that have been happening for decades in professional wrestling that we always still fall for in the ring. And those are the things that you have to change.
That's where you're going to get the fans more interested in your match and draw them into your match, because you're going to do something that they think's coming, and when you don't give it to them and give them something else, that's going to become more interested. It's just like you use, you know, the end of. I always tell this in my seminar. I have a thing that I talk about. It's called a Michael Bay opening. If you know who Michael Bay is, he directed Bad Boys, Armageddon, Transformers, and if any Michael Bay movie, the first 5 minutes of his movie is tearing ass. That's all it is. And the reason he does that is to draw the casual person in, the moviegoer in, to the action, because that's what sells, is the action. It gets you hooked. Then he's in the next scene, he slows it down and tells you the story. Same way with professional wrestling. That's why I teach guys to lock up hard and make it interesting, because some of the stuff, most of the stuff you see on TV, the lockups are weak. It's just like the fans see it every other day. So you have nothing to bring them in. If you give them something different to hook them and bring them in, that's where they become more interested in your match and stay interested.
Yep.
Because again, at the end of the day, the fans are the ones that make or break your match. They're the ones that pay the hard-earned money to come watch you wrestle and entertain them. So wrestle and give them the money's worth.
So part of the psychology, and you and I as tag team specialists on this stuff, something that was brought up to me was the importance of established tag teams having fluent double team moves, and just kicking this to you. This is something you and I have studied and we work on all the time. We tweak this kind of stuff all the time. Tell everybody the importance of the fluidity of a tag spot and the timing of it. Where and why do we put certain tag spots where we do in a match? Break that down some for everybody.
The fluidity, everything, you look more cohesive as a tag team. You look like a well-oiled machine, a well-oiled unit. If you watch the guys that are in the military, when they're doing their drills and stuff like that, they're going through marches, and especially, I don't know what they're called, the ones that do where they flip the guns and stuff like that, how they practice and everything looks so uniform and how smooth it looks. To some extent, that's the way we take ours, because our tag team moves and we want everything to flow. Your tags in and out have to flow. You have to look like you guys are one. 99% of the times, you and I don't even have to talk when it comes to tag spots, because The ones we hit, we know what's coming and we know where we need to be.
Yep.
We do these it's almost like a build up. We hit our smaller stuff building up to the bigger things.
There's a level, and for the video game community, there's a level of impact, right? So the first moves we do we'll take to the younger guys. The first moves that we would do as a tag team would take off less hit points than the ones that we're going to do later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
we're trying to wear them down.
There's a hierarchy. Yeah, there's an echelon of tag moves for us. Yes.
They are easier for us to put on the guy. They cause a little bit less impact, but they still cause an impact to wear them down. So
Yep.
when we do get to our bigger tag spots, it's a little easier for us to, like for you, one of our tag spots is a belly to back suplex into my sliding clothesline.
Yep.
You can't do that in the beginning to an extent because the guy's fresh.
Yep. I can't grab him belly to back him because he can block it.
No.
Right.
So you build these things up, and it's just like any other match. Everything's a build up. It's a pyramid.
Yep.
To the icing on top, so to speak.
Yep. The other thing too is ring positioning as far as our tag spots go. A lot of times we can call a tag spot on the fly because the guy is positioned differently than we thought he would be when on this tag or whatever. And we work hard to make sure that there's no surprises as far as stuff like that goes. But and not even the tag spot, but like when we're getting ready for them to take the heat or for us to take the heat, we are big proponents on positioning and not just hit a guy because we need him over here or whatever. We have specific moves that we would do to put us or our opponents in a position to set up the spot that we're really trying to get to without looking like we're dragging a guy in the spot or punching a guy and telling him to sell that way. Be more innovative. Body slam, boom, and then that guy sells this way, but what he's actually doing is setting up the spot. And then we body slam him, and then we go over and we do something with his tag partner or each other, and then this guy is set where we actually need him to be to take over. And and I'm not going to go into the details of what that spot is, but the point being is find ways to get the guy in the spot that you really need him at, backdrop him, suplex him, but don't just drag him, don't move him into the spot because it just looks like you're setting him up for something premeditated.
We also have a plan B and C for certain spots because sometimes we know the ring positioning may not be quite right. And we even did this when we worked with the Hughes brothers the other day, last week, or if he drops here, I'm coming this way. If you drop him here, I'm coming off this way. If you drop him at this point, I'm coming off with a leg. It was any which way you were going to show him, or you were going to go ahead and plan what was coming by the way I sent him off.
Yes. Yeah.
And we do that with our spine busters.
Yep. If he landed with his head this direction, it was going to be a knee drop, elbow drop, or fist drop. If he's the other direction, I was going to be able to hit the leg drop. So, and it's all because I do elbows right-handed and I do knees and leg drops left-legged.
and we'll also do something and critique ourselves afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, let's not do it this way this time. Let's try a little bit this way because it didn't look very fluid. Like, for our sliding clothesline belly to back, I waited a little bit too long on the timing, and by the time you hit, I had to kind of jump over you.
Yeah.
So we talked about that in the back and actually talked about it on the way home about how to correct that. So next time, as you're hitting, I'm already gone.
Yeah, we've adjusted the timing on that spot multiple times trying to tweak it. And I mean, you guys are going to do that. You guys, when you're working on stuff, like you're going to continuously tweak because you want to get better. And the other thing too is respecting that. If your tag spot takes longer than the referee's 5 count, don't do it because you're making a referee look like a turd. I mean, he is supposed to be the law in the ring. You are supposed to fear, especially if you're the heels, you are supposed to fear the fact that this man can disqualify you at any point he wants to if he goes over that 5 seconds.
Have something effective but simple. I've worked tag teams, especially the newer generation, where they wanted you to drop to this knee, to spin to this knee when I kick you here, to spin to this way, to lay on your back this way. No, it's too damn complicated.
Yes.
Make it simple.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get screwed up in the heat of it. It's just make it simple,
Yep.
but effective, so you can get in and out into 5 seconds.
Take into account too that not everybody that you wrestle against is going to be 160 pounds. If your tag spots have you doing a vertical suplex into a backbreaker with your partner and all this other stuff, think about, can you do that to a 300-pound man? Because if you can't, then most of your double team moves when you go up against guys that are a man size are not going to be in your repertoire for that night. So you have to
always say
come
up with a finish that you can hit on anybody.
Yep. And here
I'll tell you this. Here's a funny story. When Goldberg was coming up with his finish, I was down at the power plant, and he was already on TV. But they were telling me the story when he was coming up with the jackhammer. He hit it on, I want to say it was like maybe Mike Sanders. It might not have been, but somebody like Mike Sanders size, which Mike Sanders is a little bit taller than I am. And Sarge was like, that's effing great. He said, but what happens if you hit it on a big guy? Well, Big Show happened to be there in training that day, and Goldberg called him over, jackhammered Show like it wasn't nothing, because Show gets up for you.
Yeah.
Show's and it was one of those. Sarge didn't really have any response. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
So
you can hit it on anybody.
Yeah.
Yep. But and that's, respect the referee. That's we've always, we don't jerk the referee around. We don't do any of that kind of thing.
Or make him look stupid.
There's no reason to put the heat on the referee. When we're trying to do stuff, for the heel tag team and we're trying to build up the hot tag, we still try psychology-wise to do nothing that's going to make the referee look like an idiot. The whole turn the referees back while the heel team's double teaming Omar, the old stuff that people have used for decades and decades that make the referee look like an idiot, because there's 2,000 people yelling at the referee to turn around and he can't hear them to turn around. And you put the heat on the ref and not on the heels. So be smarter, be more innovative, study the teams that we talked about last episode, the Midnight Express, Arn and Tully, the Andersons, the Assassins, Slater and Orton, Murdoch and Adonis was mentioned. I don't know how I missed them. That CW, that's a deep dive we got to do. Steve Williams and Terry Gordy. There's so many. I mean, I can name 50 tag teams for you to study, depending on your
Yeah,
style.
you can.
Yeah, I'm the historian. Yeah, he's established that. But CW is I give him some homework, and he gets in there and he's like, holy shit, yeah, man, this stuff is good. Right now he's digging into some Mid-South, and he just found out that there you go, right there. He's digging into some Mid-South.
Thank you, George South.
How big of stars that Jim Duggan and JYD were for Bill Watts. Bill Watts loved those. Yep. And so that's awesome. I'm a big Bill Watts fan as far as his booking.
Yeah.
I thought he was amazing. I loved him running 19.
The WrestleMania that happened at New Orleans, I got to sit down at we were signing at a convention, and him and Eric were sitting at the table beside us. And of course I knew Eric from ECW, so he introduced me to Bill, and I got to sit with Bill and talk to him. My buddy Jack Victory worked for him. So when I said, hey, Jack Victory is a very close personal friend, he loves Jack.
Yeah.
And Mr. Watts, he sat me down and we talked for like 30, 45 minutes, and he was telling me stuff back in the day. I was in heaven, dude, just sitting there listening to him.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's I've never had a chance to meet him. Best I had was when I wrestled Henry Godwin, and he told me, he said, man, I'm telling you, he said, Bill Watts would have loved you. And it was a compliment, but at the same time, it is such a downer that I was just born too late.
100%, yeah. Yeah.
But hey, if we can make a difference for people now, if we're the last of a dying breed, so be it, but at least we're coming out here and trying to make a difference for the youngsters. And as a matter of fact,
I can't think of a better way to go out with George South like that, because we're all going out together. So us and George South, and Ricky Morton, and all that. It's a good group to come out of.
George is just so good, man. Even at his age now, it just I mean, every time I think we're getting it, then I see some stuff George does, and I'm like, man, Jesus, we got so much left to learn.
I don't know if I got enough time on this earth left.
No, I tell you, and I'm not shy about saying, if it wasn't for our run as a tag team, if it wasn't for the things that Tracy Myers and Brian Hawks have done in AML, I probably would have said I'm done, because I just don't like the state of what wrestling is today. But they allow us a canvas to be able to paint our artwork on, and they trust us. And I've not had that much fun in wrestling than what they're allowing us to do right now. And that's what's keeping me loving what we're doing and not having to worry about what's on TV. So
I work for a few promotions. I mean, Tracy's definitely my top. I've worked a little bit with Chris Moose, who represents Shane Douglas, and he's got me a couple of gigs. And I was supposed to work for him a few weeks ago, and I got called in to work on a rain day, which freaking sucked for that way. And I don't like canceling, and I had to cancel like 5:30 in the morning because I had to go into work, which it blows.
I feel bad like the rest of the week when I've missed maybe 5 shows in 27 years.
Yeah, I do not like canceling. I was supposed to ride up with Lodi, and we were going to catch up, and called him like 5:30 in the morning. I got to go to work. And it's rare that I got to work on a Saturday, but I've been working with him some. He's got me a couple bookings, working for him and working with him. Yeah, Chris is a great guy.
Yeah.
And there we go. Okay. I forgot my feeder sets, and my workout kicks on at 9 o'clock. But definitely Tracy and Brian, Chris. I got a couple shows coming up in Kansas. And we worked for Greg Anthony, which was was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I did like going out there. They got a nice little setup.
Nice little setup. And the two guys we worked in our tag team. And that was the first time I had met Greg. You had talked to him on Facebook a lot. That's the first time I met him.
Yeah.
And just instantly fell in love with him, dude. He was such a good dude. And you're over with me because you tagged with Bobby Eaton. So that's all.
Yeah, he's got a good podcast too. Ladies, I've not mentioned it. The Modest Touch on YouTube is Greg's podcast, and he covers a wide variety of things. He does 30-minute podcasts, easily digestible, great listens. It's almost like listening to Corny's podcast. It's just good information. But okay, we're going to get ready to wrap it up. What I was going to say was, you and I are going to film an extra segment where we're going to review a match, but we're not going to do that on this podcast. We're actually going to do that as a separate segment. I've decided we're going to do that so we can add some more content to the YouTube channel. But yeah, that's it for today. You guys, appreciate it. Like and subscribe. Pain Train Preston Quinn on YouTube. We're going to start getting these things up on Spotify and iTunes. So wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll be able to hear the audio on this. CW, you want to kick out your social media? Everything's
ECW Anderson. Everything I got. Any questions?
Anderson.
ECW Anderson. If any questions, anything, you guys, anybody else been doing podcasts, you want to know or want to help us improve, we're always looking for suggestions.
Yep.
To improve.
Yep, definitely. And we will be having Tracy Myers is going to come on here, and we're going to be able to actually get into a good Q&A with one of the top independent wrestling promoters and how he does and built the empire that he has. And we'll get to talk to Brian Hawks on what it's like booking for that.
100%. Brian said he would come on, but we got to give Brian something Ghostbusters for get him to come on. So
yeah, I think he already owns everything Ghostbusters. I like, hey Brian, send you pictures of stuff.
I do too, all the time. I send him pictures every time.
Yeah, he's already got everything. He's down there in Disney World right now.
Lucky rascal.
Yeah. He loves the mouse. But anyways, everybody, thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe, share it. It's the only way we're going to be able to get it out there. And again, appreciate everything. You guys giving us the questions, giving us some content. You guys help drive this podcast, and we certainly do appreciate it. CW,
100.
Thank you again. Stick around, CW. We're going to do a match critique. You guys at home, you can catch that match critique later this week. Talk to y'all later.